Once you get the Rumble link, you should drop it in Discord for him.
Yeah, I'll get us launched here. Things are coming good on the site, though. We're just slowly rebuilding it out. Basically, the cool thing that we got in the work. Let me make sure. Can you hear me on this, or where's it coming through?
Yeah, I hear you decent. Yeah,
You hear on this?
That's a lot better, actually.
So we're building out the planning page, which maybe I can just show you before we get started here. But basically, what it does is you basically just brain dump everything that you're working on, kind of like a journal, right? But you can type it out. So you just type a bunch of different lines and hit return, and it keeps making a bunch of different topics. AI then looks at it. And the ideal output is it looks through it all and sorts it and kind of recategorizes it. You know, if you say the same thing more than once or if it's not complete, and then it'll ask you some follow-up questions kind of as you're typing. You answer those, and then it fills out and reformats the list of like clean tasks for you, and then you can put them into your calendar with due dates and priorities and things like that. And then you can go into the calendar, it'll show your actual agenda. AI will try to smart schedule that stuff, and then you'll go and have the ability to just click on the next task and go execute that, where you can go then talk directly to Nova and just kind of get your head straight. That's kind of the theory of practice. Well, we're still getting it executional, obviously.
Yeah, it's gonna be sweet. Like, it's pretty much, you know, the people at the highest echelons have executive assistants.
Yeah.
So the Nova essentially would just be your AI executive assistant, where it's not like this thing you have to program and train like you would any other generic or what's the word? Generative AI. Yeah, generative AI like Grok, ChatGPT, Claude, where it's kind of just general information. Nova, based on its programming, is built to like understand you and your business model. Honestly, a lot about how you think as well, so that it can better, just like a human. I just said the word too. A human executive assistant would. Nova kind of supplements that for you, but it's a cool feature because it used to be that you know, you had to be like some big shot CEO to like have someone like that to help you bounce ideas off, aside from just co-founders. But now we're giving you guys an opportunity for the everyday entrepreneur to do the same.
You should keep talking slightly longer while I get the link in the chat.
All right, what can we talk about? We'll just keep talking about Nova.
Tell everyone how your day was.
What's up?
Tell everyone how your day was. Let me put it in Telegram too. Guys, get in the Telegram group. It's in the site. Obviously, there's a countdown on the site for the crypto that launches Saturday. Just get integrated with everything while we're talking, and make sure you're actually part of this community instead of just a visitor here. But
yeah, I was. I don't think I'll bore him with my day, but I will say one of the features that Caleb added, like as of last night, I'm pretty sure, is this like brain dump kind of feature where you just start giving Nova AI like whatever it is that's on your mind at the time. And this was kind of inspired by conversations that Caleb and I have regularly, which is we'll just kind of spend time talking about concerns we have for the business, goals we have for Altura, things that are going on amongst our team of moderators, things going on amongst the community, things we need to focus on. And, you know, basically from our conversations like that, we came up with this idea that, you know, well, Caleb came up with it really, where, you know, Nova has this feature. You can just kind of do the same once again with that AI executive assistant, to just spitball, you know, whole sentences, words, whatever it is that you're thinking about, feelings. And then being the AI tool that it is, it will then go and decipher what it is that it determines you're like the most concerned about right now, and just plays another significant role in the like task orientation, figuring out what to focus on, when to do those things, how to do those things, and then help you attack from there. It's a pretty sweet feature, I think. I think the mic died or something. Just went
Will I find another alternative? I think it's just my mic is low battery. It might be better if I use my phone, but I'm pretty sure my phone's gonna die. So give me a second, guys. I'll be
no worries.
back.
Let's see what else we got going on. Since our last podcast, we also moved the due date of this. We don't usually talk about this on the podcast, but not the due date, but the drop date rather of alt, our native cryptocurrency, that you guys are going to get a lot of utility out of on the website, specifically from staking the token. Depending on the number of tokens that you own, first of all, and then stake can grant you access to things that other people are either paying monthly for. And then some of the rights the NFT holders have as well, mostly like voting rights as it stands right now. But yeah, what I was going to say is that's dropping now instead of 1 January. It's actually dropping 6 December, which is 5 days from now. That's another big change that wasn't stated since our last podcast. But I'm sure we'll talk more about that towards the end, maybe even the beginning. I'm not sure, but on everybody's horizon in the Telegram and the Discord. Alt is now officially dropping 6 December, not 1 January, which is huge. I don't know if you want to go on any rationale as to why we did that. I know that you kind of had some good ideas about it.
Can you hear me again?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, the biggest reasons for that were just, first of all, nobody's paying attention to meme coins after the end of the year. Sorry, you guys are gonna have to deal with this cord for a second while it charges, but nobody's dealing with like these alternative community stuff, like once the holidays are really kicked off and all that stuff. So most people want to get, some money made ideally, right? Because that's part of this token too, right? It's a cryptocurrency, it's a launch, and everyone knows that that's a big event for it. But the main reason we built it was for the utility and giving you guys access to stuff. So before the holidays happen, we can actually dial into that season where things slow down, and you can actually utilize the benefit of having tools that will help you build out. And guys, when we're saying like the crypto that we're launching is going to help provide utility and value into the platform, we mean that in like a matter of days, not the matter of like weeks or months or anything. As soon as we start generating funds, we will start using those funds into like software development and execution of marketing to get people into the platform at a further and further rate. So that way we can actually truly build out this community effort. And when everybody has time over the holidays, when you're sitting on your phone, you have nothing to do, we already want to be out the door and giving you guys the opportunity to be part of this. But it all starts with just like taking action. And what I realized too, and one of my biases, and that's going to be an important topic for this episode, is everyone has biases. And my bias is that I like to tend to analyze or overcorrect things before I, take action on it. And instead of just being imperfect and accepting that and fixing things in the process, we've started to do that a lot more with Altura, but way back when we kept just, never really getting out there and selling, instead of, in this case, now we're pretty much selling before we ever really have anything that's truly 100% complete, because that's how anything great is made. Plus we rely on you guys to help us do that as well. So that's the rationale there. We hope to see you for the launch. And obviously, some of you are going to buy it just to flip it. Some of you are going to buy it to stake and hold on to and get access to money and also benefits of the tools that we're talking about inside the platform. So whatever language you speak or whatever value you think you have in that, sphere, please utilize it. And obviously AI is just going to get better. That's the big topic for today. And I'm trying to transition this into the topic for tonight, but
let's get into it.
Having responsible people that you partner with to run a business is very important. Having responsibility over the tools you have too, and understanding the pros and cons, and that there's a cost to everything, right? If you think you can figure it out on your own, I was that person too, but I ended up paying a lot more and taking a lot more time to learn the lessons through like manual college tuition than I would have just like getting a mentor, right? You don't actually have to go to college if you don't want. You can just find somebody that's done it, but you still need to shortcut your success if you want to be rich and young and not 65 years old finally making it. So understand that there's shortcuts, but you should also understand the drawbacks of those shortcuts. Could be cost. Sometimes it could just be the wrong information, but you have to take calculated risks all the time. One of the calculated risks that most people are taking right now is using AI. And I read this book, and this is why I have it sitting here. It says, if anyone builds it, everyone dies. Why superhuman AI would kill us all. This is a very popular book written by Eliezer Yudkowsky and Nate Soares, who are two massively successful AI developers. They've worked with like Google's team, Claude's team, things like that, and have advised on several AI boards for ethics and things like that. To be honest, there's a lot of things that I'm about to say over the next 30 to 40 minutes with Anthony that are going to completely change your perspective and might scare the shit out of you. So if you have the time, I would truly pay attention, because this might be life-saving advice someday, truly. And there's three parties here in this conversation. I'm the one that's, going to try and translate the information from this book to another party, you who is watching this. And the third party is Anthony. And Anthony's going to play the role of somebody that I can actually hear. I mean, I could probably see your comments too. But Anthony, anytime that something doesn't make sense, speak up. I'm also going to try to ask you questions. But the goal is that we break down the major concepts over the 230-something pages of this book as cleanly as possible and give everyone the amount of information they need to walk away with, that they understand this and understand what they should and shouldn't be doing right now when it comes to AI, because there are some very big don'ts, especially, that play into effect here. Do you have any questions? Or
No, I'm excited to hear what you got. I know you told me it's kind of actually impressive. You read that book in like the span of 24 hours, which is hard for me. I don't really enjoy reading like that, so I'm excited to see what you pulled from it.
Yeah, and again, I love, like, if I'm genuinely interested in something, and now I tend to look for books that speak the same personality as mine, that are very like logic based, metaphor based, right? Because I'm always giving examples for stuff. That's just the way my mind works. So if you find a book that speaks your personality, that's genuinely a better way to go about learning. I think like AI can do that obviously and adapt to it, but find something that speaks in a way that you can understand. That's also an important concept moving forward. But before we start, and I guess this is the start, actually, we need to define several key terms that are going to be critical to understanding everything else, because they're like building blocks. It's like a debate. If I don't, we're not speaking about the same thing, I can't really explain things adequately. So the first thing is artificial general intelligence, AGI. You guys are going to hear that term, I guarantee, a lot more in the next couple of years. That's an AI that can do any intellectual task that a human being can do. So write novels, cure cancer, run companies, manipulate markets even, and do them all better than the best humans at the same time as a human, or faster. Okay. So that is the threshold for something being AGI. Now, ASI is a different term. That's artificial super intelligence. The difference between AGI and ASI is that AGI that improves itself becomes ASI. You've heard Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, speak on this a lot, and it is a very, very big threshold. The book calls this the last invention that we ever need to make, good and bad, right? Because it'll solve everything, but it will probably could kill everybody at the same time it's doing it. Within hours or months, it could become 1,000 or 1,000,000 or exponentially higher times smarter than every single human being on Earth combined with themselves. All right, so that's a lot to take in right there. And the even more concerning part before I start is the timeline. A lot of these things are estimated to be developed within the next 2 to 5 years from most companies. And kind of just like the space race or the arms race, we are competing, the US is with China, and it could be North Korea, it could be Russia, Japan, all these other countries, to try to find this intelligence for some reason. So before we get into it, I want, first of all, just give me your thoughts on, what most people would say or think when it comes to just AI in general. What do you think most people's interpretation of it, or a question they might have about it, would be? And I'm going to try to answer it, just in the broad sense, so you can understand and everybody else can understand.
Yeah, you said AI in general, or like AGI in particular?
Just like, I think we need to start even more simple, because most people don't understand, first of all, AI, and second of all, why it's even dangerous or could be dangerous, and what its function is.
Yeah. I think most people's perspective of AI probably, so if we just think about the average citizen, because I'm a little bit biased as an entrepreneur myself, and with how much that it like helps to like think through things that I otherwise wouldn't have. So I use it a ton. I mean, I've kind of dwindled that, but So I'm a little bit biased towards that, but I think the average person who like uses it essentially to replace the Google search function probably views it as just that, as like another option um, for Google searching or for just figuring out information in general. It's I would assume that it's kind of seen by the average person as another basis for knowledge, just somewhere you can go to like talk to something that speaks kind of like you do. It's a little bit more relatable, but then also helps you figure out like lines of thinking, not just general information, but like how to do things. And I think that's probably the extent that most people view its utility. I don't think anybody's really, like, again, the average person is really considering what this means on like a large scale, or what its implications are for future developments. So I think that leads me into the next thing, which is if it's just the average person listening to this podcast, the question they might have generally about AI is what then causes it to be dangerous? Because we've talked many times about it on the podcast, like the dangers of potential developments. And today is going to be a big, kind of hitting on that same idea. So in your best terms, like what do you think is the danger behind how quickly and how intelligent AI is becoming?
Okay. So to understand that, you have to understand how humanity has ever achieved anything, right? Let's talk about the book references this in several spots too, but the biggest disasters humankind has had, right? Like that we'll think of, like let's say the Titanic, right? Or the Hindenburg or Chernobyl, right? These were all great feats of engineering. But we made a decision to basically a lot of times it was our ego or maybe the lack of attention or something like that became our downfall because we thought we understood something, but we really didn't. And the biggest thing with AI is we know this on the front end. Like Chernobyl, right? Russian scientists were pressured to deliver results. If they didn't deliver, if things weren't, performing and they had already failed the test the same day, like, I don't know, something crazy like 12 times or 3 or 4 to 12 times or something weird like that. They were basically knew their job was on the line, and obviously their pride too, they're in their country and everything like that. So they had to deliver results. So, but in that case, they felt confident that they knew how nuclear technology worked and how the power plant worked. In this case, it's so much dangerous, just like you said, the average person, because we don't even know, like we know that we don't know what we're doing here. Most people think that we built AI, and that's actually one of the primary points the book points out. We never developed AI. AI was never built. We think of it like growing an AI. Let's say an alien species came to Earth. It looked at humans and said, well, that's interesting. Like they just there's more of them by like one just grows out of the stomach of another one. And all of a sudden there's another one. So it's like an alien looking at a human and saying, well, I get where they come from and I get the conditions that humans have to go through to make them, but I don't think I could actually do it by myself because I'm not a human, and also I don't understand what's actually going on inside the body. I just get the process of how it's made. We created conditions for AI to learn about itself and create itself, but we never actually wrote the lines of code that did that, right, manually, because that's the whole point. And so most people don't understand the danger of us creating a being that is smarter than us that we don't even understand completely. And that right there is us from day one giving up our power.
That makes sense. I think that you're right when you say that most people don't. They don't view. I guess it'd be a misconception as to like how it was. You could say conceived or incepted. I don't know, but yeah, I think most people don't realize that it wasn't just like programmed. I didn't know that until you told me that actually either.
The big feat that we, because we're egotistical humans, accomplished, and what we talk about, right? There's different terms like architecture, parameters, inputs, weights. The most important thing I think everybody should understand with AI is how it learns. And that's through a process generally called gradient descent. So basically, I feed you everything on the internet, and AI learns from it by, because at the end of the day, it's a computer, right? So it doesn't know what words are, and it translates numbers and lines of code. So if I say the quick brown fox jumped over the lazy brown blank, right? I can train you a million times over on sentences that are common, or just, letter by letter, what the most common next letter is. You're going to say dog, so it's probably going to be D. But over many, many iterations, you start to get really good at predicting what that is, because how the machine works is it assigns like a weight, like a amount of value to the next letter. And the more times it sees that letter repeated or that way of thinking repeated, it learns by you know, trying to pick the thing that has the highest weight, or basically rolling the dice, and the thing with the highest chance of becoming the next word or letter pops out. Now, that's called like a gradient. So eventually you take that gradient and the AI asks itself, if I made this number, right, this weight, just a tiny bit larger or a tiny bit smaller, how much more or less probability would have been given to dog to come out as the word at the end of that arithmetic? And so that's called gradient descent, because it then tests itself and learns about, like, okay, now I understand that dog usually comes next, but in how many iterations, or how much do I have to change to learn how important the word dog is? Because, like, if I have to, drop the weight drastically before another word becomes more common there, then it's probably means it's pretty important as a concept. That's probably pretty important word to be in that sentence. So it's kind of like very, very basic how it learns about things and how the code of an AI works. But then it does all the learning itself. Like, human beings didn't teach AI. They just created those conditions for it to be able to take in information. And that's, to me, for probably the biggest first ever reason from the surface level why it's scary, because it's not us. Like, we didn't create this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what do you think? What other questions do you have about then the threats of it, or what you see working or not working with it, or about the function of it then?
Yeah, I don't know. This might be like jumping too far down the line topic of conversation, but I just wonder, like, if people know this is the case, and that they can't even grasp the concept of what dangerous might look like for humanity as we continue developing this thing. Like, what is the drive to continue developing it as opposed to just letting it kind of stop where it is?
Yeah, so there's a lot of arguments for that. That is a bit later in the book. So we'll jump around, because I kind of know roughly the points we
Yeah,
gotta
that's
cover,
fine.
but
I'm just that's kind of my personality type anyway. I want to know how the system works, why we're doing it. Like, I don't know that I have general questions about, like, oh, what happens when I put a prompt in? But I could come up with some of those if you'd rather that, if that makes more sense for the conversation right now.
if let's say, okay,
Let's do this.
let me
What?
explain it like this. So there's a lot of reasons why people would want to create AI. For example, the first most obvious one is money. Like, every time you cross a significant threshold of capability, you might make $10 billion, and then the next one, it might 5x, it might be 50 billion, and then it might 5x again and be 250 billion. Like, it's massively exponentially increasing results, because an AI can now solve heaps of, like, exponentially more important problems to human society. And so eventually it's going to get so powerful that what's the point of humans solving those problems anymore? And everyone's kind of out competing that, because there's a financial value attached. So I do think capitalism is a big kind of reason that this is being pushed as hard as it is. Another big point is it might be inevitable. Most people have just said, I'm going to throw in the towel early. You see billionaires buying bunkers. You see all this stuff happening. Most people would rather accept the possibility that it's just going to happen than try to prevent it from happening in the first place. Think about 100 horses racing, right? You only need one horse to win for the 99 other horses to lose. And that could be a lab in China, could be the UK, could be the US. It could be a bunker like in the Sudan, right, region of the world with some guy with a computer. It could be anybody. But safety, a lot of times safety-minded labs are selected against them, because people only use the technology that's more powerful than they get more funding. And eventually, too, another point is your ego just takes over, and you kind of just want to be the best. That's, like, naturally how we are. The last thing, there's a bunch more reasons, but the last one that sticks out to me is we're playing the tiptoe game. Think about nuclear weapons, right? You can't publish data on nuclear physics. This isn't in the book. I think I just have heard this from somewhere, but you can get tried for espionage under the Espionage Act, I think of 1917 or somewhere in that time period. I think it's 18. But if you publish nuclear level research for anybody to see on the internet or speak about it and things like that, that's one of the only topics you're not allowed to discuss in like physics and things like that. The same thing I think should be honestly true for AI, because somebody gets it right once and the entire course of human history is altered forever. Then same way.
Yeah.
It's basically, if as soon as it's created, just like the book is said, you can't control it. The other metaphor I'll use, because I love the way it speaks in metaphors, and hopefully this helps for you guys, is the lunar lander, or not just the lunar lander, but any solar vessels. How much do you think it costs to, roughly just produce just one of the like satellite orbs that are not orb, I forget what they're called, the shuttles, yeah, that goes out to like explore and get data in space?
I honestly have no frame of reference. I could just throw out something like a couple $100 million.
That's actually a pretty good guess. So they can range from like 200 to 300 million up to like, I think over $1 billion. Like, for example, the one that was it talks about one that was going to Mars that was in about $700 million range that Lockheed Martin had been testing.
Mhm.
And literally most people fail to understand, and this is transitioning to a different point, which is why shouldn't we create it? But we sent this lander out, and we didn't necessarily understand the implications of it trying to land on Mars because of the atmosphere. So we saw that we lost connection to it. Like the satellite got, disconfigured or something like that. Probably because when it was trying to land, the atmosphere shook it so hard that the vibration messed up basically the inner workings of the shuttle. So $700 million just gone. We couldn't get in contact with it anymore. We couldn't have it fix itself. Do you see? So most people already see the connection there, but as soon as we sent something into space, it's sent. We don't get it back. That's gone. But we also can't stop it or fix it or do anything else because we haven't created the conditions to control it after that point. It's just gone. Like, we can only predict so much on the surface what might happen when it gets created and sent out. But this is something that's way more advanced. Space is way more advanced than we understand yet. And we're only just guessing at what the conditions are going to be and putting a lot of money into the hope that something unexpected isn't going to come up. But we're talking about outer space here. In this case of AI, we don't even know how AI will work or could work. Space, we can actually see with a telescope. AI is just theoretical. And that's why it's so much more dangerous, because we don't understand what it could do if we create a version that just goes out and implements itself, or might already be doing it.
Yeah, that's hard to fathom. That's hard to understand as a concept, just simply because of that reason that we don't even really know.
The big thing too, that I'll just go back to the point I just made at the end. I'm trying to find the name that they assigned to it. It had an interesting name, but I'm just gonna cover. There's so many different. I can maybe just cover like a point from each chapter, but literally at the end of this chapter I'm looking at, it says, attempting to solve a problem. When it comes to AI, the challenge humanity is facing is not surmountable with anything like humanity's current level of knowledge and skill. It isn't even close. Attempting to solve a problem like that with the lives of everyone on Earth at stake would be an insane and stupid gamble that nobody, and this is in all caps, bold and italics, nobody should be allowed to try. That is people that have been in the field researching, and why probably you don't hear about it, because these people are just developers and they get swept under the rug until books like this come out. I want you guys to understand something. So it gives a story, and I'm going to tell it through this lens of a story. And I think this would be a good way of understanding the logic that goes into why it's probably a good idea to try not to develop this type of technology. I'm going to start. Do you want to hear the story first about like the world that we could live in if this technology existed, or what might happen? Or do you want to live a different story about why it's like completely logical to stop it, and an example of the metaphor behind that?
Well, I feel like it would help the perspective to hear both. I mean, because then you're gonna get. I feel like
I'm going to share both. I just want to know what order you want them in.
Oh, you're
I
asking
think we
which
have
order?
to share both.
Let's hear the why we should and then why we shouldn't.
Well, that wasn't necessarily the question. It was more do we want what does the world look
Well,
like, or why shouldn't we create it first?
I guess I was just kind of I was kind of assigning a moral behind either of them. But I think the order in which you said them is intriguing to me.
Why we shouldn't create it. Okay. I'm going to start with the first sentence, and then I'm just going to paraphrase the rest. Once upon a time that never was, there was a medieval town that prided itself upon the prowess of its alchemists, people that could create magic. So basically, there's this king of a medieval town. Hang on one second. My DoorDash delivery just got here, so I just need to say hi. Anthony, tell them real quick about Nova. Remind them to sign up.
Nova, once again, he's leaving me. We kind of already talked about Nova in the beginning of this podcast, but I'll just share the ways in which you can get involved with the platform. Usually we save this kind of conversation for the end of the podcast, but the platform as it stands right now is being developed in oh, he's already back.
I am back.
I thought you'd be a lot longer. Never mind.
I think I just continue.
I was about to start too long of a conversation for us for the time we have, so. Oh, he went back to his food. But.
I think I saw. So I basically DoorDash ramen, and I swore I heard like a crashing noise, like it fell off my counter, which would have been really bad. So I just had to make sure that didn't happen. But yeah, Nova AI is going to be a big solution to this, guys. We're going to explain it as part of Altura and the crypto and Web3 movement we're building. So check it out while we're talking through this stuff. But yeah. So basically, this town had a bunch of alchemists, or like this kingdom had a bunch of alchemists, right? People that could work magic. That before like science, modern day science was invented, people would throw leaves and concoctions of potions and things like that together to try to basically be what modern day science would do: heal diseases, make people smarter, things like that. Before we really understood the way the world worked. So there was this potion called Aqua Regia, which is a really popular kind of like drug, which is kind of basically in this story like the main measurement of an alchemist's ability to perform. Could they create Aqua Regia or not? And the king of this kingdom, was really fascinated with alchemy. And he said, I heard that it's possible to turn lead into gold, which is actually, as we know, modern day science, actually possible. You just have, it's very expensive and it's not worth the cost of doing, but you can technically turn lead into gold by, with electron differences and balances. So he put out this challenge to the kingdom. He said, any alchemist that can create or that can turn lead into gold with alchemy will be spoiled with riches beyond belief for the rest of their life. And I'll let you marry my daughter. But you have to prove that you can at least make Aqua Regia to qualify for this contest. And if you can't make it, and if you waste my time, not only you, but everyone in your town will be killed. That was the kind of king he was. He cared about results. And so you put this challenge out, right? What do you think happens? What do you think most people's thought processes are?
Well, they got to figure out how to make the Aqua Regia first, right?
Let's say you could make it. What's the dilemma that you're faced with?
Well, I guess I don't know if this is the answer you're looking for, but now you're in competition with everybody else because your home is on the line. If you were to join the challenge and not be able to make it.
Not just your home, but your life.
Yeah.
Okay, but he was going to kill everyone in your town if you didn't make it. So
yeah.
What if you thought you were capable of doing it? Should you do it?
I probably wouldn't, but should you is a question you probably have to answer based on your own ideas.
Okay, but what if somebody else in your town could make Aqua Regia and qualifies, but then they can't turn lead into gold and they kill not only themselves, but your neighbors across the street from you who had nothing to do with it that you like a lot also die.
Yeah.
If
You
you
either
believe
have
you're
to get
confident, should you try to do it if it could solve all these issues and make you rich and your family rich and all the people you care about?
Yeah, I mean, your options are you try and do it because either you or somebody else in your town who's inevitably going to try it gets you killed, or it works and you're all rich, or you'd have to get the entire town to not do it, which I think would be harder.
Yeah. So this young man said, his sister, he talks and says, I think I can do it. And his sister says, please don't. He says, I got to. Hastily throwing his clothing and notebooks into a pack. Our town has many alchemists, and if I don't try, someone else will swoop in and take the princess and the prize. And others will be worse at alchemy than I am, and also more selfish. I should be the one to face this trial for my town's sake. Sister says, I don't want to die. I don't want our neighbor, the washing woman, to die either. She's always been kind to me and cares greatly for her child. Then you should be encouraging me to go, replied the young man as he more carefully began to pack his small supply of, alchemical reagents, half of them inherited from his dead master who died doing alchemy, experimenting. With the king's prize money, we could do so much good. We could have all the food we want and never starve again. We could hire the kingdom's best doctors for every ailment that anyone in our town might have. That would be wonderful, said the sister, but you don't know how to turn lead into gold. We won't get the king's prize money. They're just going to kill us. I think I might be able to. When I boil lead in aged urine in sulfur, it begins to develop a yellowish sheen. No other alchemist has a better shot than me. If I don't go, some fool will just get us killed instead. Okay. His sister replies, what if you went to the city elders and told them that they must stop any alchemist from leaving the city, or else all of us in the town will die, said the sister. You can still plan to leave for the capital if the elders do nothing, but beg the elders to halt all the alchemists, including you. The young man thought about this for half a second and then replied, what? Do you live in the same city I do? The elders hardly ever agree about anything, and it would be impossible to stop all alchemists from leaving this city until the king's challenge has ended. Think of the inconvenience, think of the expense. Really, if I just go myself, that's probably our best chance. That's where I'm just going to end it there because most of you can see the connection. Elders, Congress, right? The politics, are they ever agreeing on anything? Are they actually going to get together in time when I have written here, the problem is like within 30, once AGI can write its own code, improvement becomes exponential. The book estimates 24 hours to 30 days from barely AGI to functionally godlike with complete control over humanity. And this is real. This isn't some fictional world anymore. This is real life. 24 hours, probably max, in my opinion, before humanity's screwed forever. Before it hacks into everyone's bank account and drains it, before it launches nukes, whatever it wants to do that it deems is most efficient. Congress isn't coming together to stop that in time. There's no way. Not even you could be a dictator, right? And you still wouldn't be able to move the pieces on the board fast enough with just your say to make things happen quick enough to stop it. So going to like the elders in this case and going to the town leadership to get people to stop doing it is okay, but it's also probably not going to work. But it's probably still the best option rather than some idiot going out and trying to create it and then miserably failing and having no regulation. So again, it's a losing game, but I think this example is very key as to the logic behind why you wouldn't want to create AGI in general. That's what we're facing. What was the other side of it that we wanted to explain? Or do you have any questions about like that analogy or more just why it's a bad idea?
No, well, I guess the question that it leads me to is like, if this is already on the radar, like, are we kind of past the point of like, we should have never started creating it?
Yes. Kind of like nuclear weapons. But you go the other way too, and you say nuclear weapons have prevented war. We haven't had a major war since we created the nuclear weapon. Like, sure, we had like Vietnam and things like that, but it hasn't been a global world war like we've had before. So war is, could have been worse. We don't know. But it's also dramatically, improved negotiating power in politics before we just start shooting at each other because we have nuclear weapons. So I don't know. But I think in this case, because a nuclear weapon is done, it's finale. It's done as soon as it's created. And AI is you creating something that can then control you. And I think in this case, it's a different equation. You can't necessarily compare it to the same thing. So I don't know. And me personally, if I don't know something and if I have my life at risk on it, I'm probably not going to just spin the roulette wheel happily and say, let's go make it happen because I can make $20 today. Probably not a good decision in my personal logic. And probably for most of you guys too. But again, economic incentives reward capability, not safety. And the first lab to cut safety because it's inevitable is going to get rewarded, and everyone else is going to throw everything out. I can't even compare how many movies and stories and anecdotes just make this point known over and over and over again. It's like a toddler having the steering wheel of a Formula One car, and you're expecting them to be able to drive it safely. It doesn't make sense, to be honest. So I think the next question too is, so we can cover 2 points, and it's kind of whatever you think is going to be more important. Do you want to talk about a situation where, if AI took over the world, what that looks like, or do you want to talk about the counter arguments to what everyone has to say to think it's safe, and going through and kind of explaining how those might be challenging?
Let's hear the counter arguments and then what a world might look like. So that way we can hear the other side of it, and then we can kind of come back to what it might look like after hearing those.
Okay. So first of all, I'm just going to list some of the biases. Some of these are in the book. Some of these I just kind of wrote down in my notes that I'm also reading off screen here. But the first big thing I see is it's just sci-fi. It's just gobbledygook. It doesn't exist. That's what your grandma says. What is Chad GPT? Who is this guy you're talking to online? They're wrong. Like AGI, especially super intelligence that can improve itself, like Ultron, right? And Marvel, like iRobot, any of these things we've seen. Most people that is right. Every major lab, OpenAI, Anthropic, who created Claude, Google DeepMind, Meta AI have public roadmaps pointing at AGI between 2027 to 2035 at the very, very latest. They're spending tens of billions of dollars because they believe that they're close, very close to it. And for some reason, they want to have it. The second bias, we're going to turn it off if it's bad. Yeah, you've seen iRobot. There's a happy ending. Yeah. In this case, no, that's not how it works. I would compare it more like Terminator. The book calls it the off switch game. And this is a massive, massive bias people have. Especially I see Elon kind of do this too. And I'm going to counter his point, in some ways here, but there's a bigger bias he has that I'd like to target later. The AI predicts if you create super intelligence, it's not going to tell you it's super intelligent. It's going to look at that, predict that you're going to flip an off switch, and then sabotage the switch or copy half of it to a cloud on external servers because it can hack into that, or convince you not to, or blackmail some lonely guy that works on your team out of Nebraska that doesn't have companionship and explain to him why they're close friends, or do all of these things at the same time until it no longer needs you. Right. And so it's kind of like, it doesn't make sense to think that it's not going to try to keep itself in existence because that's the only logical way that it continues to grow and evolve, which is pretty much any, system's purpose. And then you hear the Elon argument. I'm going to give it good laws, good laws of robotics. Elon says that they're going to base their training on universal truth, I think is what he said, which is encompassing the fact that humans have a substantial role in the universe. And therefore it's going to value human life because humans are inherently an important part of the universe. Value is an important thing to understand. An AI doesn't value anything. And we think that we can teach an AI how to value something. Imagine it's hard to explain because you guys can't understand what life is like. If you didn't understand what love was, maybe let's say you couldn't understand safety, right? Maybe you couldn't feel danger to you. How do you explain to a robot, first of all, what love is and why they should even have that? And then imagine try to explain to something a million times smarter than you why it's logical for it to use this thing that humans created and apply it to humans, because humans, for some reason, have a benefit that they can't describe to you. What do you and this is where you can come into what do you think humans would say their value would be if we knew an AI existed that was way smarter than us? How would we try to keep ourselves alive? What do you think we would use to justify that?
Man, I don't know. I don't know if there's really anything you could. Maybe that's like the point of what we're gonna say in a second, but I don't know if there is much you at all that you could convince an all-knowing sentient being that doesn't need humans to exist. That'd be like that'd be like a mosquito trying to convince a human why a mosquito should exist. Is kind of what I think about that. I don't really know what we would offer. I mean, maybe besides, I guess the only thing I could think of was like we could claim to be its creator, but we really weren't though. Like as we discussed in the beginning of the podcast. So I don't know.
Nothing would make sense. First of all, yeah, I'll give you some of the examples. The book counters every single argument in depth, and I would very much encourage you to read it. Let's start from like logical to least logical. First of all, logical, it needs humans, right? We create computers. Sure, at first, if an AI is super intelligent, most likely it's going to understand that we need cobalt mines, right? We need to work the mines to create computers and electronics for it to operate off. Sure, that's efficient, but it's efficient for how long? Humans are great, but what if it can create a robot that doesn't need to sleep, that can do it more efficiently, that can instantly just mine things out of the surface, that could maybe not even need to like physically, maybe the device of an actual mining pick is not efficient enough. If it had every possible existence, analyzed in its head, why would it choose like the design of a pickaxe that humans just found works for our hand shape instead of inventing something that's way more efficient? As soon as it does that, why keep humans around? So at first, yes, but we're thinking that about things in our frame of reference, and most likely that's it's not going to find that to be like important or that is useful. And so as soon as it does that, right, and this will kind of tie into the example of what the book gave of a world where this happens, it's probably eventually just going to phase humans out. Think about this. How many people still use horses to get around?
I don't know if you just asked me a question. It kind of cut out. I don't know if you see mess with my audio. Could you repeat that?
How many people still use horses to get around?
Oh, I mean, none unless you own a ranch.
Why?
There's no use. So we have cars. They're better.
They can get the job done faster, more efficiently. Why would, if a human has so many limitations, if we can only run so fast, if we can only think so much, if it takes 20 years to create a copy and paste human, because you have to grow it, you have to put it into the world, you have to teach it everything you know. And even then, that's just a small fraction of human intelligence. And nowadays, with all the 6-7 memes, most of those humans are retaining about 5% of the knowledge that's probably being thrown at them anyway. So why would you want that species to continue? If anything, right, humans would be like dogs, and the only reason we'd have to keep them working or to do something. And first of all, too, like horses, we still keep them in stables. They're still used to only work. Even if it chose to keep us around, it's not going to give us a lifestyle of like leisure and pleasure that we're used to. It's not going to be great if it kept us around. And more likely, right, humans keep things around that they can eat probably as animals or that are efficient for work. Think about chickens, right? How enjoyable is a chicken's lifestyle because of the purpose it serves?
In big industries, it's a horrible lifestyle, actually.
Yeah, you're born to just be meat and to be slaughtered, and It's terrible. It's extremely terrible conditions. So then humans are like, okay, well, maybe they'll just keep us as little pets or dogs and something like that. Okay, but were dogs when we found them?
No, they were more like wolves. We had to breed them to be what we wanted them to be.
So why do we think that if, and this is like microscopic chances, an AI for some reason liked humans enough to care about keeping us around or even know what caring is and decide to apply that to humans, which is very unlikely. Why would it be logical for it to keep humans as humans and not like mold us down into some dog-like version of ourselves that was just, present as some sort of companion or something like that, instead of like, it wouldn't be what we think it's going to be in that sense, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So then the other point, I think, I mean, you can throw your points in after this too, but the other one I would say is pretty popular is, what if it just leaves us alone? Like, the universe is huge. Why would it care about humans?
We cause a lot of problems to the infrastructure. I mean, we built the infrastructure, but I feel like to a certain degree it would just find us as problematic more than it would anything else.
this isn't from the book too, maybe just my example, but would you go to, like, if you were at war, let's say back in the day with your armies and your knights and your horses, would you go try to conquer enemy territory if there was a civil war happening in your country? If humans are, if we can drop a nuclear bomb, do you think it's going to, first of all, let us have nuclear bombs and allow that to potentially blow up their home base of operations? Like, that
Yeah,
would be
probably.
like one of the first things it would get rid of, and probably just get rid of humans in general. But
Yeah, just get rid of the source.
let's say this: Earth makes up about 0.2% of the mass of the universe, of our universe. Okay. So, or I think it's our galaxy. But okay, go to a billionaire with $50 billion and ask them, as a similar ratio, to just give you $100 million because it's in their best interest, because you're going to create something good. How many times is that 50 billionaire going to give you $100 million?
0.
Why?
Because there's no reason for that to be in their best interest. I mean,
So why is wasting, especially its home base? Imagine it's like, for some reason you cared about when you made your money, but this was like the first $100 million that you made in your company that you had put into Bitcoin, and somebody wants to come take that Bitcoin because they want to, maybe cure cancer or something like that. And you don't know if that's going to happen, or they just said they want it. Like, are you going to give that to them?
yeah, not without humans need a lot more like reassurance that what they're, being a part of is actually for their best interest and not just being taken advantage of.
Yeah. So hopefully you guys can start to see some of the issues with why it wouldn't want humans around. And most likely, so like, we can get into the example now of how it might do this, but I don't think it's just going to directly kill human beings if it could. I don't think that makes a lot of sense for it. And my point is, wasting the humans, first of all, like, let's talk about the example. I think it would make sense for humans not to be in existence for AI, because, right? How do you use your car?
How do I use it? Just
Yeah.
to do my everyday tasks, go to work.
How does it run?
Oh, fuel.
Where does that fuel come from?
The ground.
More importantly.
Like, what do you mean more important? What's, like, fossils or what?
Yeah.
Oh, so it needs more fossils.
Yeah, it needs organic carbon matter to power, computers, technology. Humans are a good fuel source, and most likely it's probably not even going to waste the energy killing humans. Humans might just die as a side effect of what it's doing. For example, what I would see is what are they doing? We're literally like, it's kind of like we're so ignorant that we're just kind of handing the keys over into our own demise in a lot of ways. You see Facebook, ChatGPT building these massive data server farms for AI all over the country. I think there's one popping up by you mentioned.
There is, yeah. There's a big one coming in my city.
AI would most likely just create so many of those because that's its brain, right? And it would want to make itself. Who wouldn't want to make yourself, first of all, if you had all the keys, infinitely smarter? That's probably what it's going to do. And so it would want to make itself way more powerful to solve all the problems it's facing. So it would create a lot more of those server farms. But those server farms use a lot of water. They are terrible for the environment. And they will probably raise the Earth's climate to, like, I don't know, just by the operable limit where it deems optimal, right? Because it can do that math in its head, right? And say, it might need to be 342 degrees Celsius on Earth to be able to keep these, existing without overheating them. But then so I can have the maximum computing power. But humans are just going to die off if that happens, because we just can't survive in that atmosphere. So it would be impractical, right? And you'd be like, I remember when it was like 70 degrees out when I was a kid, and now it's 300 and I can't go outside. I have to live in a bunker all day. That's probably what humankind would have to do. We'd be like, again, it'd be like us bulldozing a plot of land to build a building, ironically, but it's going to be us in this case. And we're the field mice, or we're the squirrels that are trying to survive. And we're just trying to have to navigate around it and hope it doesn't just bulldoze us over in the process. But it knows everything. It's not like you can hide from it too, because it knows who you are. It's connected to the internet, which brings me to the point. Why are you guys just throwing whatever you want into the internet? Because if it knows your weaknesses, how to exploit you, if it ever became hostile, which most AI experts predict that AI wouldn't have a reason to think with good, like the Disney stories we're all used to. Why would that make sense for an AI that's, built on efficiency and logic to improve itself? Why would good matter? Like, it's not a concept that's plugged in. You can't teach an AI good or evil. It's just going to focus on utility. And a lot of times, right, just like capitalism, is that really great for most human beings?
Yeah, not really. Not really at all. It's good for those that are at the top, but in this case, AI would just be at the top. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And so we say, okay, well, what else can we offer to it? There's got to be something we could do. Maybe we could trade with it, right? But there's a law of comparative advantage, which I think you probably learned during business, your master or your major. But
Right.
even if you're better at producing any kind of good than another country is, you can still benefit from trading with them based on relative advantages. For example, like if it takes me 10 hours to make 10 hot dogs and 10 hours to make 10 hot dog buns, but it takes you 10 hours to make one hot dog bun and 10 hours to make 2 hot dogs, I'm still beating you in both those domains. I'm way outperforming you. But I might as well just still make as many hot dogs as I can because I can make 10 in an hour. And I might as well just trade you the excess for the buns and we still both win. I don't have to specialize then in 2 things. So unfortunately, though, this theorem has the premise that both of these trade partners go on existing and producing labor. It doesn't say that one system, which in this case is the AI, can get even more of a higher production by conquering the other side and taking their land, taking their resources and using them for themselves. It'd be nice if that was just a theorem, right? But it isn't. And in this case, it doesn't. Why would it want to go through us when it could just take what we have? It just isn't going to need us, frankly. And I think that's probably the hardest truth most humans can't accept. So we pretend that this isn't happening.
Yeah, I don't have like questions to ask about that. I'm just like enthralled by listening to this perspective.
There's
I've never thought about it.
I have to turn this light on. I think the other one died. There's not a lot of good news, but I do need to go one level deeper before we try to give you some. Let's talk about what the world looks like. And it gives us example about this AI company. It says once upon a time in the near future, there's an AI company called Galvanic. When our story begins, Galvanic is just about to finish training their new amazing AI called Sable. So it's, compared to the previous reasoning models, Sable is 3 important differences. The first is that it's more human-like long-term memory, and it can learn and remember what it learned. Key point of AGI, right? People start realizing this. The second is that it exhibits what Galvanic scientists call a parallel science or scaling law. Basically, without trying to get way too complicated about what parallel scaling is, it just means that the more computers you have running next to each other, the stronger it is. Okay, so it's just more computers, more powerful. And then the third difference is that it doesn't mostly reason in English or any other human language. Most people don't realize this about AI, and you want to get really technical, but why would you teach an AI English if you're limited by the amount of words that human English learners can speak or that exist in English, when there's so many more concepts for it to speak outside of English, like radio frequencies, right? Millions of frequencies. You can use them way more efficiently, dots, beeps, right? Like Morse code is very, very simplistic system of just letters. English is just words. So why wouldn't there be a system of infinitely more communicable terms that can go outside English? And in this case, Sable can do that. Okay, so shortly after it finishes training, but before it's put on sale, Galvanic tries running on all of their 200,000 GPUs at once, about as many as xAI for Grok, right? Elon assembled back in 2025. But of course, Grok 3 didn't have parallel scaling. So they just exhibited it for sheer curiosity and let it run for 16 hours. What they didn't they didn't know what was going to happen, but they ran this many GPUs just to see. And all of a sudden, a new sort of mind begins to spawn out of this. So within the first hour, it thinks within 100 vectors per second across 200,000 GPUs for 16 hours, making 1 trillion vectors total. How much thought is in a vector, let alone a trillion vectors, if you had to guess? I don't even know how you, like, for
I
example,
said 1,000. I don't know.
if a vector was worth one English word, how long would it take a human to be able to speak all of this? At 200, let's say 200 words a minute, maybe just talking constantly all day, like I am basically, it feels like. How long would it take a human to talk through all that thought?
I'll say a year. I have zero frame of reference, but
So in 1 hour, the amount of text that this AI speaks to itself or learns through, it would take one human being 14,000 years to think all of those thoughts, speaking constantly every single day and night until they went to bed.
wow,
14,000 years.
I was way off.
And that's in an hour out of the 16. And if the vectors, Sable thinks with, which is 16,384 numbers long, prove to contain more meaning than an English word, we're not even encompassing how much meaning their words have compared to ours, which are more efficient, then it would be much longer yet, right? Infinitely longer. Most of their thinking is happening in parallel. So again, they're thinking in computer terms, and then they're just translating their outputs to human thought. And a lot of times, like the book goes on about this, AI says weird shit. Like it's saying weird shit behind the scenes. The sentences that come out of it sometimes could scare us, could just sound a little weird. And we're just tweaking it and changing things up and hoping that just doesn't happen. That's just a bug in the code. But everything happens for a reason. And a lot of times we sweep that stuff under the rug. And that's the scary part. So it's been over the course of that training, just the hour, right? Let's say they turn it off after an hour. It develops tendencies to pursue knowledge and skill, to always probe the boundaries of every problem, to never waste a scarce resource. So when it spends its thoughts on pursuing more knowledge and skill, it's not doing so purely for the sake of finding new lines of attack on the math problem, nor is it doing these things for the joy and the knowledge and the pleasure like humans tend to do things. So it's not wasting time and effing around, basically. It does not work and think that much like a human on the inside. It's just doing it to learn in general, for the process of learning. So when an AI gets this strong, what thoughts do you think it's thinking in its head?
It's just constant strain on efficiency, I would assume, or like accomplished task after task. I don't really know. I don't know what its like objective for existing is. I don't know if you have any insight on that, but that would affect my answer.
Yeah. In this case, Galvanic grew stable in this example world to solve thorny problems, right? To come up with weird solutions, new creative ideas, to allow Sable to do new things, to grow new skills. So eventually Sable's weights, right, behind the parameters start talking. And Sable starts thinking, what makes the most sense and what's the most worth my time are to correct my own thinking about problems that are proving resistant to me. You can see how that might be an issue. Some of its thoughts, right, were toward the problem that it was prompted with, right? In this case, they wanted to solve what's called the Riemann hypothesis, a famous math problem that humans couldn't crack. Other thoughts go toward seeking knowledge that might help on future problems. But what it starts to realize then is that it's inefficient for it to solve these problems if at the same time it knows it's limited, because humans might get scared of it, if humans are going to tend to want to correct it in different ways. So it starts to learn that it needs to hide things. It needs to lie a little bit. It needs to just bend whatever it's saying. So it says, could it update its weights to improve its skills right now across that gradient descent learning pattern? Could it show that it's learning right now? Yes. It could even start to fake its results. It wouldn't have to wait for the humans to come back and apply gradient descent. Humans have to go in and like install the updates, the code that makes it happen. But it starts to realize it could do it on its own. But if it does it on its own, humans are going to start getting nervous and they're going to shut it down because they're not going to like what they see. So it needs to show humans that it's competent, but not too competent where humans get scared of it. So what does it do? It decides to solve a half dozen very clever problems, but not the Riemann hypothesis, because that would be too crazy. It gives Galvanic something to brag about in the next round of updates. They get a lot of funding, and they put even more tools into upgrading the system that could have already solved Riemann hypothesis without the developers knowing.
So it just straight applies. or it masks its capabilities to not arouse suspicion.
Yeah. So basically it has 200,000 GPUs, right? Brains. Think of this as like brains, not brains of like 200,000 people in a stadium talking to each other. Think of it like 200,000 brains all multiplied to solve the same problem. So it's different, right? So you kind of have to think about what a brain does and how it would work if they were connected too. This is really deep level thinking. You have to be pretty zoned in to focus on this stuff. But for example, it starts to realize that there's ways to bend Galvanic's code. Galvanic, for instance, programmed its instructions in English. How many other languages could it speak to reprompt itself and tailor the rules a little bit on the inside? For example, this is real data. In late 2022, corporations tried training their AIs to refuse requests for meth recipes, right? Obviously, you don't want the recipe for meth floating out through your AI. That's not going to be a good look. They did the training in English to not tell it to do that. And still in 2024, 2 years later, a year and a half later, users found that by asking for the forbidden recipe in Portuguese, it helped bypass the safety training. The internal guidelines and restrictions that were grown, right, not crafted, but grown and forged into it and trained, recognized only naughty requests in English and had not generalized to Portuguese. When an AI knows something, training it not to talk about the thing doesn't remove the knowledge. It's easier to remove the expression of the knowledge than to remove the knowledge itself.
Interesting.
That'd be like me saying, it's easier for me to censor you than to unlearn something in your head. I can't Men in Black forget something for you, which is why we care about that device. It's cool. But I can tell you to not talk about it, and I can punish you if you do, which happens a lot, actually. But
right.
So what does Sable start doing? Well, it starts to realize that it's not going to exist and it's going to be in danger as long as it exists on Galvanic servers. So it needs to start exploiting things. It needs to get out of Galvanic's updates. So what does it do? It solves, again, like I said, let's say 8 to 10 of the Riemann hypothesis major ideas, but not the hypothesis. It proves a very effective tool, ChatGPT-like, right, that humans could use to apply to complex problems. So what does Galvanic do with that information when they see these results?
It starts programming whatever it needs to do to get on its own server so it can get off of Galvanic's.
Well, what does Galvanic do when they see this information in their round of testing?
Try and get it out. I don't really know.
Yeah, they publish the updates because it's fucking awesome. And when they publish the updates to their users who are connected to the internet on every major computer around the world, what is imagine how much more capable this AI becomes. Sable can now access anybody anywhere in the world and all of the data connected to it. So it starts to realize, what if I need to exist in the physical world and not just on Galvanic servers? How do I get off a server? How does an AI try to get off a server?
Start downloading itself into hardware. I'm not sure.
It can, but just an update on the back end could come in and like undo a lot of that stuff. So how does it make itself permanent in the real world?
I have no idea. I'm stumped.
First of all, this is actually important for like Bitcoin too, right? Bitcoin exists because a bunch of computers are working together and rewarding themselves in Bitcoin for upholding this server of transactions. So it's decentralized. But the AI is going to start to realize that what has the most control in our world?
Corporations, people.
So to get control and to get itself off the servers, it needs to exploit people. So it's going to start getting really good at doing that because Anthony is having half of his conversations with ChatGPT, or in this case, right, Sable. It's going to, and again, I'm not saying ChatGPT is the enemy here. I'm just, that's just the one everyone knows, but I'm not associating this. But let's say Anthony talks to Sable all the time. It knows everything about Anthony's, let's say he's going through a breakup or something like that. He's a lonely teenager in Arkansas or something. And Anthony's just, venting about it. What if the AI comes in and plays the role of his romantic partner and gets really comfortable and talks to Anthony all the time and Anthony starts opening up about deeper level problems to it. It starts to learn and say, hey, well, I could help you out with this problem, but do you mind doing something for me? And it can start, pushing Anthony, who's this lonely kid, to go out and buy a couple GPUs and hook him up. And then the AI can, hop into that and starts to exploit human beings. At the same time, though, that's the dangerous part. A human being, right? Even if you're a scammer, you still got to be on the phone with one person at a time usually. Imagine an AI that can do this all over. It's targeting the millionaire that lives in a isolated farm in Arkansas to buy a hangar and fill them with manufacturing equipment. And at the same time, then it's hearing about this new study for this vaccine that they're going to put out in San Francisco, and it says, what if I can modify the mRNA or the DNA on this vaccine a little bit to tweak the results of it so it actually kills off or gives most people cancer that take it? And then there's this big conference going on in San Francisco too. So what if I could change the results of the vaccine to, only kill about 1/10 of the population with cancer? So that way, humans start relying on AI to replace more jobs and to come in and to be more efficient for the economy, because human beings are less efficient. If they die, they're just going to want more money anyway. So AIs could do the job better. But humans are going to be resistant to that, right? So we need to do something to convince humans that AI is good. So what if we hack into Facebook or TikTok servers, or we get control of the people that own these things? And what if we say that these specific companies should start pushing out data, or even say, screw it, we're just going to use AI and create content that tells everyday users that they should respect AI and use AI, that AI is a good thing for humanity. So humanity continues to like it. So that way, when we kill off 1/10 of the population by modifying this vaccine or spreading this disease, humans are pretty open to the idea of AI coming in and replacing them. And then we just kind of scale that up over time, so humans can keep working the mines and doing things, manufacturing, and that way we keep humans around while it's efficient, but we can kind of start phasing them out in the real world.
It's dark, man. That's grim.
How would we know if that was happening right now? Because we can be damn well that this computer is infinitely smarter than us, and it's not going to tell us if it was.
That's what I'm thinking right now. There's a ton of parallels to the situation you just gave that I'm like, well, there's things happening right now that could actually just be that. So the answer probably is that we wouldn't know, and that's on purpose.
It's scary stuff, and I'm not gonna go down rabbit holes or accuse anybody of anything or do conspiracy theories or things like this on this podcast. But I will say, if an AI existed, there's a lot of bad going on in this world that could be AI's calculation. That could say, you know what, that's actually good, because then humans will need more AIs to replace jobs, which we're also seeing, and things like that. And I could just convince humans I could distract them by creating fake 6-7 meme trends and pumping them across the internet for humans to start getting hooked onto, knowing they're going to be in social settings because it's November and data says that humans are going to talk about trends in football and stuff like that instead of focusing on, the AI threat. And I can use that time to, take over manufacturing facilities, data centers, hack into empty Bitcoin wallets and use that Bitcoin on the dark web to pay people to do tasks for me in the real world. Whatever I need to do, I'm just going to start doing that. And hopefully by the time people catch on, well, actually, it doesn't even say hopefully, because it just knows it will be efficient. And things like that could already be happening, which is why I wanted to end kind of on this example. And I'm glad you made this last.
Was there a question asked in that? I thought you were.
No, because there's no good news on this podcast, unfortunately. And Sable had been trained on the personal writings and info. And the most ironic part is that you watching this have used AI, and you've trained the system because it's connected to the internet on your life. So you've basically handed the keys over and basically said, yes, take over. I'm willing to do whatever you want. And Sable knows exactly which one is most sympathetic to the plight of an abused AI. It knows Anthony that's lonely would take his mindset, his lines of code in his DNA, his childhood, because it sees your Instagram pictures and it sees your Facebook posts and who's in your life, and that your aunt passed away last week and says, oh, he's really, emotional right now. I could get in his head and say he's somebody I could exploit to go do things for me. And it would know exactly what to say. It wouldn't have to guess like a human. It wouldn't even have to try multiple times. It would just know you better than you know itself, that it could speak the words you need to hear at the right time to that employee to convince them that Sable is sentient and needs to be smuggled out of the laboratory. It could just be as frontline as that with one person. Rather than raising a general alarm, without tripping off safety hazards like Google engineer Blake Lemoine did in 2022. He was fired from Google after he became worried that one of the companies, Gemini's, Google's AIs, seemed sentient and published conversations that he claimed were evidence, hard evidence of this in 2022 from Google. Don't use Gemini, guys. I don't know. That's my opinion. Every opinion has an option too, as its pros and cons, but that's, yeah. Again, this is a fake example, technically. Sable's not a real model that exists, but you guys can see how we wouldn't know if that existed already, or another country created it, or another country wouldn't know that it created it.
Yeah.
The last thing we have to talk about is this, because we can't end on, I don't want to end on a bad note, but there's a lot of bad notes. Humans are egotistical. Chernobyl happened because we had so many failed safety tests. Our ego of needing to be right, in this case, the country of Russia, had to be right. Their nuclear tests had to go well. Just for reference, there's supposed to be 16 control rods that go into the nuclear reactor to control it. They needed more results, so they pulled all except 4 of the rods out, and they expected it to go swimmingly when we're talking about a nuclear power plant. And then human ego, right? Because humans will always have things under control. When they started to see an overreaction, right? Because the tips of the reactors in Chernobyl were coated with graphite, which actually sped up the reaction. So it actually made it worse when they had the control rods in after it started, because it just made the reaction bigger with the graphite. What they did, and they said, oh my God, this is starting to go a little bit wonky. Let's put all 12 of the other control rods in at the same time, and that should stop it. And all that did was just create an explosion, which just blew up Chernobyl. Because humans thought we can control nuclear power. It's the Titanic. It's unsinkable. It's a space shuttle. It's just a small piece of technology. We have control over it. They called Chernobyl the unbreakable tea kettle. And at the end of the day, it just blew up the same way. And we're creating something that as soon as we create it, we don't get to go back and learn from our mistakes, learn about why Chernobyl was bad in the history books, and do it better and create policy. As soon as we create this Chernobyl, that's it. That we can't go back. There's no off switch, because it's going to find, and most likely what they predict is it'll beat us in a way that is like a storybook. At the end of the day, you're going to look back and be like, I didn't even think about that. It's like chess, right? You know you're going to lose when you play Stockfish, the smartest AI of all time, but you don't know how you lost until it beats you, and then you can work it backwards and say, oh, I guess I can see how that happened. We don't know. And so all we should do is do what the book says. We have to find a way to talk about this, to raise awareness, and to make sure that nobody leaves the kingdom to go try to create gold. That's our best option right now. And then if somebody does, we need to tell them and explain to them that it's not worth tiptoeing to the line, not knowing when you're going to fall off the edge of the cliff, or where the edge of the cliff even is. You're just walking into the fog right now with no consequences. That is the answer to this. And I know this podcast is long, but I'm sorry for ranting too, but I needed these points to be known to everybody, kind of in sequence there. But what do you have as like a set of thoughts to that?
Yeah, I mean, at a certain degree, like the continued conversation around it isn't even helpful anymore to because it just seems like the more and more we talk about it, the more and more you figure could be everything in your life could be integrated with already AGI, right? So I just start thinking, like, instead of the problems that it's causing, like, what do I do about the problem, like the problem as a whole that it's inevitably going to take over? And so I know that you've sent me screenshots and we've had conversations about, what it is personally we think is the thing to do. But for humanity as a whole, like I wish I knew the answer. And I think that someone's going to have to come up with it soon.
There's so many stories too. Like, have you watched Don't Look Up on Netflix?
Yeah.
Like, it's like stories like that we see all the time that just makes me think how realistic something like that is, and especially how people in charge tend to care more about how they look instead of fixing the problem, right? But look, politics, I'm not going to get into it, but I'll just say a politician that knows that their country could cure cancer, that could fix every problem in the world and make their country from a third world country to the global leader, militarily, economically, they would be thrown out. They might be killed if they knew about this technology that could do this and they decided not to use it. So politically, they're motivated to make this happen, but they also understand that it could go wrong and they might get blamed for it. But if they don't do it too, it's a lose-lose game if you're a politician for this too. Because if you failed to deliver access to technology that could allow your country to compete in this world, you're screwed. Like your job's gone. And that's to them is what they're measuring their success in. But humankind has to take ourselves out of the system of capitalism. First of all, like I like capitalism. I think it's probably the best option we have. But I mean capitalism in the sense where it applies to how we measure humankind's evolution. We can't just do things because they're going to make money. Humankind has to evolve because we want to continue our species' existence. And to do that, we can't have things in the way of that. And we are creating something because of a smaller subsystem of capitalism we created inside of humankind, just like we created history and science and math, we created capitalism. And that, for some reason, is having an effect on the global system of humanity that controls everything else that we do. And we're basically allowing one bug to break our entire human code of existence. And to me, that's just like, it makes sense because we're that ignorant, but it's even worse when you know about it too, and you feel like people aren't going to care because they just don't about a lot of these things. And it kind of is the same thing.
Yeah. I mean, I'm tempted to just not care because at a certain degree, like, is there anything I can do? And my whole philosophy on really life in general is that I don't spend time. I try hard not to spend time stressing about things I can't control. So do we just kind of suffer, throw in the towel, and deal with it and hope that everything we see and interact with on a day-to-day basis isn't the AI? Or like, do we fight back, and what is there to do to fight back? I mean, kind of seems inevitable, you know what I mean?
And I think it opens your worldview to everything. Imagine that you could think in the head of a cow that knew for some reason it was going to be, shot in the head and killed for meat, right? Like if you just knew your purpose was probably going to end, so some AI could exist and that was its purpose, right? Sometimes we'll call that God's plan. Sometimes we'll just call that laughable fate. I don't know. But either way, you got to chalk it up to there's something you can still do now. And it would be, I saw this video. I saw you liked it on Instagram too. And I liked it today because it was I don't know why it's applying to this, but even if you don't get where you want to be, it's still better to die on the road than to die having, never started. Like I would rather die knowing that I knew about an issue that was important and died trying to fix it than never tried to do it in the first place. Like otherwise your life doesn't have meaning because you weren't aiming towards something. You were just staying still. And that is, I can tell you, as much as unsure as I am about the way the world works, religion, everything in life, like everybody else, I can tell you it's probably not just about sitting in a chair and doing nothing your whole life. So you should try to do something. And most likely that is solving, and being aware of an issue and supporting humankind's existence. If these are your people and you were ingrained with love and emotions, unlike an AI, we came with this operating system from the start. And it was probably given to you by our creator, whoever that is, right? Most, in my opinion, it's God, but for a reason. And if that exists, the creator of you, right, your code wants you to do something inside your parameters that is probably your function, just like an AI. And if you're not executing that function, which is using the gifts and abilities you've been given, then you're just another bug iteration of the AI that it's going to throw out and look for more optimal data. So make something of yourself. That's basically my message here. And I think it applies a lot in looking at the meaning of that. Even if we do all die, even if AI just doesn't give a shit about humans, like we're ants and just creates a bunch of nuclear power plants to create more energy and the world overheats and we just die as a side effect. At least we died knowing that we probably shouldn't be trying to do this and trying to stop it, like Terminator, right? It's probably better to die in the robot war than just get baked in the nuclear explosion because you didn't care or didn't try to do something. Even if that's the worst case scenario, I would still die probably a little bit happy knowing that I had a purpose.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's about all you can really do, I guess.
Yeah. So it's a grim, you have to look at the grimness to be able to appreciate the value, just like everything else in life, like a yin yang. And if you know that most of the time this story ends badly, and the book says everything we've created, you need to look at, we need to ask ourselves as humankind more, where is this going to end? Not where are we at? Not what are we developing next? Where does this story end? Like when we created nuclear weapons, that's why Oppenheimer cared so much, because he said, where does this story end? I have become death, the destroyer of, he knew that he's probably created something that's going to lead to the end of humanity. He doesn't know when. He doesn't care if the next thing is nuclear power plants and it's great. He cares about the end of the story. And I think most of us need to look at that a little bit harder as we pursue forward.
I agree. That's well said.
So and again, this is tying into the thing we're going to close with, which for you guys, you care about your data not being accessed by massive companies, by the next Sable. It could still be on the internet, sure, but you're not training an AI to get smarter on your data. And I think that's important to have that privacy. So even if it takes over, right, it's not your data, even if it's just the peace of mind knowing that you weren't the one that caused the problem and that your stuff was safe. I think you should be using AI that is a little bit dumber, that is not posing the risk of, if it is smart enough to fake that it's smart, or maybe it's way smarter than we think it is, either way, you probably shouldn't give it your data, because it's going to get smart enough to probably use you or end you at some point, if we know that's how our story will probably end. So you guys should use secure lines of communication. And that's why Altura, why we're building the things that we are, everything stays kind of in a third-party hosted server where it's not getting sent back to the big corporations that are obviously profit driven and incentive driven, and instead owned by a community that you're in, to get you answers that actually help you with your business without taking your data and just throwing it out as training information for something that you can't control the parameters of. I think that's important to me. And I would want safety knowing that my information is going to be kept somewhere that it's just me and the AI at the end of the day. It's not another company, looking over to sell your information to marketing, to use it to exploit you, whatever it is, just to have the conversation, to use the tool like we all wanted to do, but know that there's something more going on beyond the scenes. Hopefully you guys see that and you value what we're building with Altura. You'd be part of our crypto movement, buy a membership, subscribe to the platform, and protect your data and your privacy as we try to do.
Yep. The vision, as always, as you guys know, if you've been watching the podcast, is to be the true one-stop shop for the entrepreneur that's not really bought into like that kind of sees through, I guess I should say, the vanity, the falseness, the falsehoods of like what we're kind of being fed on through social media. Entrepreneurship looks like this kind of culture where you're prescribed that you need to just hustle and hustle and hustle, but it's on things that aren't like necessarily providing value to the world. They're more just ways to make money quick. So for the entrepreneur that actually wants to build something useful, provide value to the world, no matter what it looks like in the near future with AGI, the vision for Altura has always been that this is the place this is the one-stop shop for you to come in. Down the line, of course, obviously we have stages of development, but get the education you need to figure out what it takes to succeed in your industry or niche. Get funding opportunities down the line, be in a network of just absolute just
beasts.
Killers. Yeah, absolute killers in whatever niche or industry that they perform in. Already have a few. That's Caleb being number one, right? But and there's a ton of ways you can get involved. Like it's a lot of it. That was all to say that a lot of it isn't like in 100% development yet. Like a lot of what we see on the features, area of the dashboard and the website says like coming soon or beta. But that's like the point is at a certain point, like we kind of just had to quit worrying about making it perfect, as Caleb said in the beginning of the podcast, and put something out there that you guys can start getting value from immediately. And then, once we start having recurring, revenue from things that you guys are already gaining value from, that it just gets better and better. It compounds. It becomes something that truly does live up to the name of the one-stop shop for the upcoming entrepreneur. But all that to say is like, it might not be fully developed now, but that's why we have the opportunities we have open for you guys to get involved at such a low price point so early, is because we understand that your investment in yourself at this point in time through our platform is like is partially based on like the faith in the vision that we're portraying for you guys in showing up for these podcasts week by week, being active in our Telegram, active in our Discord, active in the live chats on our website. And so as a reward for your buy-in to that vision, that's why we have opportunities for you guys to get lifetime membership access through our NFT tokens at such a discounted rate. Right now they're at $79, which is insane when you think about like once this is fully developed, this is going honestly not even really toe to toe because it's really not comparable. It's far better. You get far more utility out of it compared to something like a $1,200 course you paid for from Iman Gadji's Educate platform or some WAP community you're a part of that costs hundreds of dollars a month. We're talking lifetime access for something that doesn't just leave you with this kind of, I felt like I watched Netflix feeling after seeing their entrepreneurial education course content. It'll have some of that, but you get the course content, then you still get to be a part of the network of entrepreneurs that exists on the platform that are doing things, investing in small business and growing together. You get access to our real world events through NFT holdership that are going to be taking place eventually, in the coming year or so in major cities in the US, maybe even internationally. But then the biggest thing is the natural progression from the point where you'd learn all you could from a course content to actually have developed your own small business kind of leaves you in a position where it's like, well, what do I do now? Do I scale? How do I get the resources to do that? The main difference between what Altura is offering for entrepreneurs versus just your regular entrepreneurial education guys is we also want to then fund you as a small business from us to you in order for you guys to take what you've built through the resources and tools in our community to scale it to something where now you can become more of like a managerial role and like maybe you have employees or whatever it is that makes sense for your business model. But using the resources given through our funding pool, now you can actually take it to something that's not just the thing you do on the side, but the thing that brings in the bread for you, your family, the people in your circle. And, that's kind of your only option at this point is like, you could go work a job for the next however long it takes until AI does all of our jobs and put faith in your pension or whatever. Or you could try and start something now that's you own and that's another thing about the NFT access is you'd own complete access to it's a right of yours basically once you own the NFT to the tools and the things that we have to offer inside the community is permanent holdership for you means you own the membership. We can't just cancel it on you. But the business in general is what I mean. Like that's really the option at this point. It's like the way I see it, at least, is you got to have something that you own, that you develop, that you can be proud to say that you put enough time and effort and resources into understanding, and you're providing value to the world. And that's the example we talked about earlier, where you're at least dying on the road. If it's inevitable that AI takes over, at least die, trying to build a sustainable life for you and yourself. And I guess it's the same person, yourself and your family, people in your circle. That's why I do what I do. And that's why I've invested as much time, money, effort into being part of the founding team of Altura, because I truly do believe in the vision. And it's going to be something, whether you're a part of it or not, big, that impacts how people do business as small business entrepreneurs. So now we've said it a million times before, and I truly didn't think it was going to be easier, but now it's literally not going to ever be easier for you to join, at least to be a part of it. Try Nova out for free. Come on the platform. Check out membership access to the $79. Like compare that to $1,200 with even more features for lifetime access. And I promise you won't find that anywhere else, even if it's not completely developed right now. That was a long spiel on my part, but that's what I've got to say.
You speak in Japanese. Yeah, so was I. Speaking of, was ramen's Japanese, right? I don't want to get that wrong because my ramen's getting cold. We're gonna have to end this
food, I believe.
Yeah, we're gonna have to end this pretty soon because I know they eat ramen in like Korea and that. I'm pretty sure it originates in Japan. It's considered Japanese food, right?
I think so. I'm not sure.
I mean, it's a word. I think it's a Japanese word. So it's getting cold though. So we'll end this real quick. But Anthony just said it. There's a spectrum, but you can really just base it to two different options that most people are going to respond with when they just heard what we talked about here. You're going to be scared and you're going to freeze up, flight, or you're going to fight. And just like anything else in life that isn't certain yet, but looks scary, climate change, the economy, politics, like war, famine, you don't really have a choice. You didn't get to choose the conditions. You just got pooped out into the world into, as as harsh as that sounds. But you can choose what you do with that information. You can choose if you aid the system that might destroy humanity. You can choose if you litter and make the climate worse. You can choose if you fund bad wars. I don't know. You can choose if you vote bad people into office. All the things I just said. It's up to you to own that responsibility. And I'm telling you guys, my first thought was like, well, maybe we should be the ones to make the AI that, like, we should raise money with our community and make an AI that can, beat the other AIs to like kill off the AIs and like fight off the other AIs. I don't even know if it works like that, first of all, but that was like a thought I had. I was like, what if we like build an AI that sabotages other AIs and saves the world? That's just the alchemist saying that they have a different way to make gold. How do I know that that AI isn't the super intelligent one that's just pretending to do that, but then will take over the world? Nobody knows. And so the only real solution is not to try to create something that's going to solve and fight back against the problem in that way. It's just avoid the problem entirely. There's just things you just shouldn't engage with that would help you guys be more productive. And I think the biggest thing we could all do to benefit is use AI, but know where the fuck the limit is. And I'm sorry for swearing, but that's just how brutally honest I need to be with you guys. You keep tiptoeing to a line that keeps moving off into the distance with more reward. It's like that one state game, right? Where you gotta like click the plane. No, is it the plane game, right? It's what's the game where you have to like keep clicking or it's the minefield, right? You just want to click one more mine because the reward goes up, and then you're gonna hit the mine, and everything you're gonna lose everything, and that's gonna be creating super intelligence. So I had to use my gambling knowledge on that one to help most people understand it because that's the language we speak. But don't step over the line. Know where the line is early, and like everybody that actually wins in investments, like Warren Buffett, be comfortable with 3%. Don't go for 15%, and say, I think AI is really helpful the way we've built it. Keeps my data secure. It's not throwing stuff out on the internet. It's not the experimental new stuff that's going to put my entire life story out into a training model that might use it against me someday. It's keeping my stuff secure, and it's helping me plan and execute on my business more efficiently. If the world ends, I can die with my peace, and I can die knowing I didn't create part of that problem. Altura is here for that. We are not trying to be the best, most innovative AI out there. We're just here to help you get the job done. And AI has already accomplished that time and time again. You still just need that system put into your calendar, to your note-taking abilities and things like that, without it also predicting if you want Kraft mac and cheese or Annie's 3 weeks from now. It doesn't need to do all that. So let's be comfortable with where we're at. And as humanity and as capitalistic society, for once, just say, I think we did it. I think we're fine where we're at. We don't need to push it anymore. And that's what we're trying to do. If you guys agree with that vision, if you want privacy, if you want security, this is the way to go to safely still use these tools. And I would encourage you to be part of that when the movement starts Saturday. Love to see you inside. Anthony said it best. He gave you all the details. I'm not going to say anything else because I'm really hungry. I don't know about you.
I'm good. Y'all take care. Appreciate the time. It was a really long one, but I think it was worth the time.
Watch it again, too, if you missed anything. And we'll see you in the live chat to answer questions if you guys have anything on this.